My parents tried to give my inheritance to their favorite daughter, but my grandparents had a surprising twist in store. As a 28-year-old man, I come from a family with a long and convoluted history of favoritism that has shaped my experiences and relationships in profound ways. My younger sister, Amy, now 25, has always been the preferred child, especially in my father's eyes. This favoritism started in our childhood and only deepened as we grew older, creating a painful dynamic that defined our family life. From my earliest memories, Amy was the golden child. I recall the extravagant birthday parties my parents threw for her, filled with everything a young child could dream of. For her second birthday, there were professional face painters, a bouncy castle, and a petting zoo. In stark contrast, my fifth birthday was a meager affair, consisting of a store-bought cake and a simple family dinner. This disparity set a tone for years to come, where I often felt overshadowed and undervalued. As we aged, the differences in treatment became glaringly obvious. Amy consistently received the newest toys, the latest clothes, and the majority of our parents' attention. I remember saving my allowance for months to buy a new bike when I was 10. When Amy expressed jealousy and threw a fit upon seeing mine, my parents didn't try to educate her about patience or the value of saving. Instead, they rushed out to buy her an even nicer bike than mine, reinforcing the idea that her desires were paramount. The bias extended beyond material possessions and into our academic lives. My parents attended every school event for Amy, while they often missed mine. I practiced for weeks for a lead role in the fourth-grade school play, driven by enthusiasm and excitement. However, on the night of the performance, they arrived an hour late, having lost track of time while comforting Amy after she complained of a stomachache. Their neglect of my moment in the spotlight hurt deeply and only highlighted the lack of support I felt throughout my childhood. In academics, I sought to excel, joining the math club and consistently earning straight A's in middle school. I even took first place in a regional science fair, a significant achievement that my parents hardly acknowledged. In stark contrast, they threw Amy a celebratory dinner and bought her a new phone when she scored a B+ on a test in her weakest subject. I couldn't help but feel the injustice of it all, as my efforts seemed to go unnoticed and unappreciated. High school was particularly challenging, as I desperately sought my parents' approval. I was determined to maintain a 4.0 GPA, join multiple clubs, and took on leadership roles, including being the editor of the school newspaper and the captain of the debate team. Amy, on the other hand, cruised through school with minimal effort, often hanging out with friends rather than focusing on her studies. When I received acceptance into a prestigious summer program at Harvard, I felt a surge of pride and accomplishment. Yet, my father's reaction was disappointingly muted. He quickly shifted the conversation to Amy's upcoming dance performance, and when I needed a ride to the airport on the day of my departure, I had to ask a friend's parents for help because my own parents were too preoccupied with Amy's concert. The college application process only intensified my feelings of inadequacy. I devoted countless hours to refining my essays, preparing for standardized tests, and engaging in extracurricular activities. I was thrilled when I received acceptance letters from several elite colleges along with a generous scholarship to my dream school. However, when I shared the news at dinner, my parents' response was barely passable. My father advised me not to let it go to my head, while my mother quickly moved on to discuss the latest happenings in Amy's life. The lack of enthusiasm was disheartening. In sharp contrast, when Amy barely passed high school and opted not to attend college, my parents praised her for knowing herself and defying social expectations. They even gifted her a car for her graduation. The emotional toll of their persistent favoritism weighed heavily on me throughout my teenage years and early 20s. I battled anxiety and despair, ultimately seeking therapy during college. It took years of work to rebuild my self-esteem and learn to validate myself without relying on my parents' approval. Despite the lack of support from my immediate family, I managed to create a decent life for myself. By 27, I had graduated with honors, secured a good job in finance, and even purchased my own home. Then, the current family drama unfolded. Not long ago, my grandfather passed away, leaving behind a sizable estate. He was a successful businessman who had built his fortune from the ground up. In his will, he divided his possessions equally among all his grandchildren, including Amy, our cousins, and me. My portion amounted to approximately $500,000, a significant sum that could have allowed me to invest in my future, pay off my student loans, or even start my own business. However, when the will was read, my parents became visibly agitated. After the reading, they pulled me aside to express their belief that it was unjust for me to receive an equal portion. They argued that Amy, who was still living in their basement and working part-time at a coffee shop, needed the money more because she was struggling. Stunned, I attempted to remain calm as I clarified that my grandfather had made his decision, and they had no right to alter it. My father insisted that I should act morally and give my share to Amy, becoming enraged when I refused. They began guilt-tripping me, calling me unappreciative and selfish. My father dredged up every instance where they had supposedly helped me, such as paying for my medically necessary braces and school supplies, while conveniently ignoring the car they bought Amy and the numerous shopping sprees they funded for her. As the situation escalated, my father, acting as the executor of the will, took it upon himself to reinterpret my grandfather's intentions. He declared that he would give my entire inheritance to Amy, insisting that Grandpa would have wished it that way if he had known our unique situation. I was heartbroken. This blatant disregard for my grandfather's wishes was not only illegal but also a painful reminder of how little my parents thought of me. I pointed out that Grandpa had always treated all his grandchildren equally and reminded them of how he had encouraged my academic and career goals. They dismissed my memories as misinterpretations and claimed that Grandpa was concerned about Amy's future, despite my pressing question about why he hadn't structured the will differently to reflect that. Amy, for her part, seemed awkward about the entire situation but did not voice any criticism of our parents. She merely shrugged and said, "Mom and Dad know best." Feeling misled and wounded, I reached out to my paternal grandmother, my grandfather's widow, to share what was happening. Her reaction was one of outrage. She informed me that my parents had no authority to alter the will and that this was not at all what Grandpa had intended. Grandma provided me with documentation that clarified my grandfather's wishes. Years earlier, my parents had asked him to give everything to Amy, but he had firmly rejected that idea, believing all his grandchildren should be treated equally. He even included a clause in his will stating that anyone who challenged the equitable distribution would forfeit their share. Armed with this information, I confronted my parents about their previous attempts to manipulate the will. Their shocked expressions revealed their discomfort as they scrambled to defend their actions, insisting they were only looking out for Amy's future. However, I could see the guilt written on their faces. Grandma acted quickly. She contacted the other executor and my dad's siblings, all of whom shared her strong indignation regarding my father's actions. Together, they ensured that my grandfather's will would be executed as intended. Although my parents were furious with me for involving others, they had no choice but to back down. They accused me of turning the family against me, claiming I should have handled the situation privately instead of involving others. My mother cried, lamenting how I had split the family and deceived them. I calmly explained that I had never expected anything from them in the first place. The tension reached a breaking point when my father threatened to cut me out of their will entirely if I accepted my inheritance. This ultimatum left me feeling trapped, caught between the desire to secure my future and the complex dynamics of my family. I realized that my self-worth was not tied to their approval or the inheritance I might receive. It was about reclaiming my narrative and standing firm in my convictions, no matter the consequences. Ultimately, I made my decision. I would accept my inheritance, not as a way to defy my parents, but as a step toward independence and self-acceptance. I resolved to break free from the emotional chains of favoritism that had bound me for so long, determined to forge my own path in a world where I could define my own worth. The communication surrounding my inheritance became increasingly charged and tense. My father, in an attempt to assert control, went so far as to threaten that I would not be welcome in their home should I choose to accept the inheritance. This felt particularly hurtful, a calculated move intended to manipulate my emotions and provoke guilt. My mother added her own sting, remarking that my acceptance of the money revealed a lack of genuine love for them. She suggested that I was merely poised to profit from their passing, implying that my affection had always been contingent upon financial gain. This conflict has deeply divided our extended family. A few of my cousins have been supportive, recognizing the long-standing favoritism that has existed within our family dynamics. They appreciate my efforts to advocate for myself in a situation that feels deeply unjust. However, there are others who believe I should have yielded, arguing that maintaining family harmony should take precedence over financial considerations. Despite this, my father's siblings have largely sided with me, which has unfortunately strained their relationships with my parents. My sister Amy finds herself entangled in all of this. In a private conversation, she confided that, while she feels guilty about the situation and never intended to be in this position, she is not ready to stand up to our parents. For her entire life, she has been conditioned to depend on them and seek their approval, a pattern I understand all too well. I can't fully blame her for this. The weight of those expectations can be suffocating. Yet, a part of me longs for her support, just once, during this tumultuous time. This whole ordeal has unearthed a lot of past hurt and bitterness. I can't help but reflect on all the times I was overlooked in favor of Amy. I think back to the birthday celebrations I missed, the school functions my parents didn't attend, and the successes that went unacknowledged. Each of these memories adds another layer to my frustration. It feels like this single occurrence has brought to the forefront a lifetime of unfairness and resentment that has been simmering beneath the surface. The aftermath has created a significant rift in our family. I stand firm in my decision to accept my inheritance as my grandfather intended, despite the tension it has created. Communication with my parents has dwindled to almost nothing. Family gatherings have become increasingly awkward and strained. For the first time ever, I missed our monthly family meal last week. I simply could not bear the cold shoulders and accusatory glares directed at me. Even amidst this turmoil, a small part of me feels empowered. I am confronting the unjust treatment from my parents for the first time in my life. I am declaring my worth and refusing to be sidelined any longer. This experience is both terrible and liberating, revealing my strength in standing up for myself. However, even as I believe I am in the right, the family drama is taking a toll on me. It has drained my energy in a way I haven't felt since college. Anxiety attacks have resurfaced, unsettling my life. I am seriously considering returning to therapy to help me navigate this overwhelming stress. I find myself questioning whether I should have simply conformed to my parents' expectations and handed the money over to Amy to keep the peace. I am tired of being the family scapegoat, yet I am terrified of losing my family entirely. I would greatly appreciate any guidance or perspective on this complicated situation. As for an update since my initial post 6 months ago, much has transpired. I want to extend my gratitude to everyone for their support and advice. It has truly strengthened me during this challenging time. Following the legal matters, I took the advice of many who suggested I consult my own attorney. He confirmed that I had every right to inherit and that my father's attempts to manipulate the situation were, in fact, illegal. My attorney helped me document everything, preparing me to take legal action if necessary. Fortunately, things did not escalate to that level. With the assistance of my father's siblings, my grandmother, and her attorney, we managed to resolve matters without involving the courts. I received my full inheritance, and the will was executed exactly as my grandfather intended. Due to my father's attempts to manipulate the will, he was removed as an executor. This process was demanding and spanned several weeks, during which my parents threatened litigation against me. There were tense meetings and furious phone calls exchanged, but ultimately, the law was clear, and they were forced to relent. The fallout within the family has been significant. Initially, my parents doubled down on their accusations, branding me as greedy and neglectful of my sister. They sought to rally other family members against me, spreading unfounded allegations that I had somehow coerced my grandfather into giving me money. Fortunately, most of the family saw through their deception, recognizing the truth of the situation. About a month after the will was accepted, there was a particularly unpleasant incident at a family gathering when my parents confronted me about my choices, leading to a heated argument that further widened the rift. Through it all, I find myself grappling with the emotional weight of the situation, trying to balance my desire for justice and recognition with the fear of losing my family. The road ahead feels uncertain, but I am determined to navigate it with strength and integrity. The tension in the room was palpable when my relatives, particularly my aunt, arrived unannounced for a gathering, having hosted without any prior invitation to us. It wasn't long before their displeasure erupted into chaos. They began shouting accusations at me, claiming that I had manipulated my sister Amy and turned our grandmother against them. My father's anger was particularly intense, as he declared that I had ruined all the wonderful memories we once shared as a family. In a dramatic display of his frustration, my mother hurled an old photo album at my feet. The moment was awkward and terrible, filled with an uncomfortable energy that hung heavily in the air. It took several relatives stepping in to calm things down and persuade my parents to leave. In the midst of the chaos, I found an unexpected ally in my grandmother. She stood firmly by my side, recounting stories about my grandfather and how proud he had always been of my achievements. She spoke of how he had dedicated himself to ensuring that all his grandchildren had equal opportunities to succeed. This included maintaining a scrapbook filled with my accomplishments, showcasing newspaper clippings of my academic honors, copies of my college acceptance letters, and even the program from a university play I had participated in. Her words were bittersweet. While they highlighted the love and recognition I had yearned for, they also served as a painful reminder of my parents' neglect. Grandma took it upon herself to set the record straight with our extended family. She organized a gathering that excluded my parents, where she openly addressed the history of favoritism that had plagued our family for years. She laid bare the events that had shaped my experience, some of which I had long forgotten or had never heard about. Finally, having someone acknowledge the unfairness I had endured felt incredibly vindicating, yet it also reopened old wounds, particularly regarding my sister, Amy. To my surprise, Amy reached out to me personally. After reflecting on the situation and engaging in several long talks with our grandmother, she found her voice and apologized for not standing up for me earlier. She admitted that she believed our parents' favoritism was unjust, but she had been too afraid to confront it. Our conversations about our childhood were lengthy and filled with emotional intensity. Amy opened up about how being the favored child was not as wonderful as it seemed. She felt immense pressure to meet our parents' expectations and often yearned to accomplish things on her own, only to have our parents swoop in and handle everything for her. This pattern deprived her of the opportunity to learn from her mistakes. This pivotal conversation marked a significant shift in our relationship. We began to mend the sibling bond that had been strained by our parents' favoritism. Just the two of us started meeting for coffee regularly, offering encouragement as we navigated this family crisis together. To everyone's surprise, Amy announced that she would use her inheritance to pay for her college education. She explained that seeing me stand up for myself had motivated her to take control of her life. Once she determined what she wanted to study, she enrolled in a nearby community college, planning to transfer to a 4-year university later. Our parents' shocked gasps revealed their realization that their overprotectiveness had done more harm than good to Amy. My parents' reactions to our newfound independence were complex and ever-changing. Initially, they lashed out at both of us, attempting to guilt Amy into quitting college to help the family, claiming that I had turned her against them. When that approach proved ineffective, they shifted strategies. After numerous conversations with Grandma and witnessing Amy's impressive transformation, my mother began to acknowledge the damage their favoritism had caused. She made tentative moves toward reconciliation, even starting therapy to address her issues. My mom reached out to apologize, admitting her unfairness and asking for a chance to make amends. Although the process was slow, I felt a glimmer of hope, all the while remaining firm in my boundaries. Sadly, my father's response was far less accommodating. He stubbornly refused to recognize any wrongdoing, insisting he was the victim in this situation. His coldness toward Amy, following her decision to attend college, was disheartening, and he hardly spoke to me at all. He attempted to control us through threats, declaring he would sell our childhood home if we didn't come to our senses and forgive him. Watching him distance himself from both of his children was painful, especially during such a crucial time in our lives. In the midst of this turmoil, the dynamics within my extended family began to shift dramatically. I found myself living closer to my dad's siblings, who were immensely supportive. With Grandma's guidance, I started to navigate my father's difficult behavior over the years, which eased my sense of isolation in this fight. I also formed deeper connections with cousins who stood by me. We initiated a monthly family meal to catch up and enjoy one another's company free from the drama of the older generations. On a personal level, I took a practical approach with my inheritance. After paying off my college loans, I felt an extraordinary sense of financial freedom. Working alongside a financial advisor, I created a diverse investment portfolio and set aside funds with aspirations of launching my own business in the future. I envisioned opening a community center that would offer affordable mental health services and financial literacy workshops. However, the most impactful use of my resources has been investing in therapy for myself and supporting Amy in her healing journey. We are both learning how to set healthy boundaries with our parents, striving to heal from the emotional neglect and favoritism of our upbringing. This process, though challenging, has brought about surprising positive changes in my life. I've gained valuable insights into setting limits and standing up for myself. Although I know I made the right decision, it hasn't been an easy path, and there are still difficult days ahead. Nevertheless, I feel proud of myself for resisting guilt and pressure from my family. One of the most unexpected outcomes has been a shift in my career trajectory. The family conflicts I've navigated, coupled with my therapeutic journey, have illuminated my passion for supporting others grappling with similar family dynamics. I'm now considering returning to school to specialize in helping adult children of emotionally immature parents, aspiring to work as a family therapist. Additionally, I've been volunteering with youth from challenging family backgrounds at a local facility, providing the kind of encouragement I wish I had received as a child. The opportunity to offer support to others is incredibly fulfilling, and I'm contemplating establishing a scholarship fund for children facing similar circumstances using a portion of my inheritance. As for my relationship with Amy, it has continued to improve. We now dedicate one day each month to sibling outings, engaging in activities that bring us joy, such as hiking and picnicking. Our most recent adventure felt the most relaxed and connected we have been since childhood, free from our parents' influence. Together, we are gently rebuilding our bond on our terms. The situation with my parents remains complicated. My mother is working diligently to rebuild our relationship, consistently attending therapy and beginning to recognize the damage her favoritism has inflicted. We've had several one-on-one lunches where we've engaged in honest yet challenging discussions about our past and our future. While progress is not without its flaws, improvements are becoming evident. In contrast, my dad remains resistant to change. He insists he has done nothing wrong and believes that Amy and I should express gratitude for everything he has done for us. He refuses to be in the same room with me, missing various family gatherings. While it pains me to witness this divide, I am learning to release my desire to force him to see things my way or control his reactions. Through this tumultuous journey, Grandma has emerged as a steadfast support system. She has shared more stories about our grandfather, highlighting his pride in us for standing up for ourselves. Her unwavering belief in justice and understanding makes her an exceptional mediator in family disputes. Overall, this process has imparted invaluable lessons about the true meaning of family. I've come to realize that sometimes, the family you choose can offer more support and encouragement than the one you were born into. Alongside this realization, I've cultivated a close-knit circle of friends who have been incredibly helpful throughout this journey, and I've grown closer to my aunts, uncles, and cousins who stood by me. Setting limits and prioritizing self-care have become paramount in my life. I am learning to assertively say no to situations that jeopardize my mental health, and I no longer feel guilty about placing my well-being first. For too long, I was consumed by the desire to win my parents' approval, often neglecting to explore new interests and hobbies. To anyone in similar circumstances, I urge you not to let anyone make you feel guilty for claiming what is rightfully yours, even if it stirs controversy. It is entirely reasonable to defend yourself. While family dynamics can be complex, everyone deserves fair treatment. Remember, it's never too late to start building the life you deserve. Seek therapy if needed, surround yourself with supportive individuals, and don't hesitate to set boundaries. Your personal worth is defined by who you are, not by how your family treats you. I want to express my heartfelt gratitude to each of you for your suggestions and encouragement. Your support has meant more than you could know during such a challenging period. Although the path ahead is not simple, I feel a renewed excitement for the future and a confidence I haven't experienced in years. I look forward to where this new chapter in my life will lead, determined to break the cycle of favoritism and cultivate healthier relationships within my future family. Thank you for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so and hit the notification bell to stay updated on more real-life stories happening around you.